Thank you very much. Thanks for whipping them into a frenzy. Hello, everyone. What the hell happened? First of all, thanks for having us. Thanks for the no air conditioning. I should mention that Jews sweat when we swim, so there may be a problem in about 20 minutes. Okay, well, I think we're off to a pretty lukewarm start. That's good. No, it's important. I finished very strong. We're basically going to do a little truncated version of my 2010 Streamy Award-winning Kevin Pollak's Chat Show. Thank you both. You're very kind. I first worked with, this is Robert and Michelle King, so please let's welcome them first of all. I first worked with, I guess,
like a lawyer.
Yeah, just Robert.
I am a lawyer.
On a wonderful motion picture that should go nameless. No, why? Why would it go nameless? That's ridiculous. But we had a non-meeting experience on the film, to my recollection.
Yes.
Yes, okay, good. I was hoping I was right about that. And then I sort of became a fan of theirs through the television. So let's start, if we may, by showing a clip of their award-winning television smash hit, The Good Wife. Now's good, by the way.
I've been hurt deeply. I imagine I will heal someday. But for now, we need a plan.
You're sounding like a lawyer.
I am a lawyer. I want to be here. I want to be doing a good job.
You are doing a good job.
Then use me.
You two do have a complicated relationship. You know, an unrequited thing.
There's nothing going on with Alicia.
Will? I have two eyes.
Hi.
Hi.
Need a love that will release me.
Transmitter is to be worn around your ankle at all times. It must not cross this line.
Weird, isn't it? You're going to work, I'm staying home. I found condoms in your bedside table.
I have other drawers, too. Did you check these ones?
I said that I was looking.
How about over here? Did you check this
What
drawers?
is it you need to hear from me? I will never touch another woman again.
What do you want, a prize, Peter? It seems to be the minimum prerequisite.
For both of us.
It's over.
What is?
Us.
Peter, no!
Don't leave me.
I hope to become the state's attorney of Cook County once again.
I don't want to go through life
You got like
think
to
something
say
didn't
that?
happen just because I didn't make myself clear.
Alicia!
That's all right. How about that? All right, so let's start, if we may, with your choice in boots today, Michelle. What? No, let's start with your creative experiences prior to this smash hit, because everyone loves a winner. So it's really the journey of getting here that always interests me the most. Well, not the most, but first. So let's talk about, if you don't mind, your processes, first of all, of writing together as mates. What the hell?
I'm going to let you hit it.
We structure together.
Right.
We write first drafts together, where we're really both sitting down at the computer. I usually type, because I type one finger.
No, you don't.
Yes, I do.
The
Not even
iPad
two.
is perfect for you.
Yeah, iPad's perfect. We sometimes play the dialogue out in our heads, but for us, it's not usually about the dialogue. It's usually about the structure. So the structure we sweat over a lot, and then we do drafts pretty fast.
Right.
I would say that so much of TV for us is the pitching process, getting it right in the pitching, because if you really don't sell it, you know, it's hard to go forward with it. So we rehearse the pitch completely. We write it down.
To the point of scripting.
We script it, yeah,
Every
with
word.
my name for what
Take
I say.
notes of that. That's
yeah.
unbelievably important and helpful.
The best thing, too, is to have two people pitching or more, because you really are varying the experience for the listener. So, because, first of all, who wants to be talking by yourself for 15 minutes, it's always good to have a contrast.
It's always good to have a contrast, and it's almost more entertaining for whoever it is you're pitching to, and they're not listening to one monotone.
Let's hope.
And we, you know, we're not actors, so we get nervous very easily. So the one thing is, if we remember it down almost to the word, then we can vary it in the room and seem very natural. Because the worst thing is to make the person you're pitching to feel nervous, like you're going to miss something.
And do you have a bad pitching experience you can share with us as a rule not to follow? In terms of this education that you...
We have usually, in features, I've had terrible experiences on my own. Together, we have not had a single bad experience.
Wow.
No, this is a lie.
Oh, good.
This actually is a lie.
Took 4 minutes, we got our first lie.
Which was, we were pitching to 3 executives. One of them nodded off while I was talking, and Robert did kick him.
Who was that?
I'll tell you later.
Oh, I think I do know. Yes, that's right.
So, I'm sorry, you said you were pitching and Robert kicked him?
Yeah, because he was nodding off.
He was falling asleep.
So you kicked him?
Yeah, well.
That was the way of waking him. You ran through the options in your mind, and you said, I'm going to go with kicking.
Did we sell it there?
Yeah, we did.
Oh, we
And you
sold
sold
it
the
there.
show.
Yeah, there.
He was so impressed.
Yeah.
And felt so bad that he'd fallen asleep.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes, but that was never made into a show. We just sold the pitch.
You sold the pitch, yeah. So I would imagine some of the questions for creators is, how much do you work with your agents in terms of sort of putting the ducks in the row, as they say, at who to hit, when to pitch? A lot of the questions, for what I have found over the years for creating television, it has changed. It almost seems like year-round now. It used to be just June is fantastic. July, as soon as everyone's back from vacation, you want to start hitting them, and then August, September is the push, is the real craze time. But it seems now with cable, and dare I say the internet, of course it's year-round. You get to pitch to yourself on cable, on the internet, which I love the most. That's a great idea. Well, then why don't you do it? All right, I will. But in cable, it seems like now it's pitching year-round. So how much are the agents and managers involved in? Do they just house the information as to what the key times are?
We work very tightly with our agent, Andy Patman at Paradigm. We usually, for us, it's a very seasonal thing because we've only pitched a network, which is just happenstance. And so come May, Michelle and I just say, what are the things we will want to pursue? And then we create usually a list of ideas that just sound fun to us. And they're all over the map. They are not always trying to be commercial or anything. It's just all over the map. And then usually we decide what are those top 3 that we love. And then we tell them to Andy, our agent, who thinks, well, okay, either we have a deal at ABC that we have to fulfill and pitch there, but often it's like, okay, this studio is looking for this kind of thing. Usually it's a drama with some comedy element, something that has some procedural element, a female lead, maybe an ABC thing. So usually he tries to connect those up, and then he tries to match us up with a producer. Because we've never really ended up married to one producer. We've always, when we say a producer, someone who then becomes our kind of executive producer partner in the process.
Okay. So that's interesting.
In this case, it was Scott Free, Ridley and Tony Scott, and their TV person, David Zucker. So we went there with The Good Wife.
Are they more or less grandfathers at that point? I mean, how involved is that production entity in the process?
Well, no, go ahead.
Please, dear God.
Enough
already with him.
David Zucker, who's the president of Cricket, has actually worked really closely with us, creatively as well as interfacing with the studio and the network. So, I mean, he's really been what a person would hope a non-writing producer would be, which has been a true help.
Fights battles for you.
Fights battles and has been really involved.
And you hooked up, in the case where you have a situation, as you said, an obligation at a network, do you hook up with them before the pitch? At what point do you go to that giant production protector arguer entity?
We've usually had that with ABC up until the strike. The strike was like this big, Berlin Wall right in the middle of our careers, right down the middle of it. But before that, we were only working at ABC, and we usually knew that we had a blind pilot deal with ABC. So we'd either go in with a producer we already liked, knowing, that ABC would buy something, but we may just have trouble agreeing what that thing is. So usually the producer is more, we have more options with, but we know we're going to end up with something at ABC. Then after the strike, we were more open, so we went to CBS.
Okay. When you're writing and creating the pilot, or any project that you're writing, are there actors in mind? Do you cast while you're writing, or do you cast and create wholly original characters that then actors have to surprise you with their interpretation?
I think the latter.
The latter. We don't like getting an actor in mind because you'll never get them, and then you'll be overcommitted to that one in your mind.
Right.
If you went in early on with this other show we did that wasn't very successful, but it was called Injustice, we knew Jason Amara, who's a very good Irish actor who was in Life on Mars and will be in this.
Oh yes, of course.
Terra Firma, is that what it's called? The one we knew we were writing toward him fairly early on because he was open to be attached to our show, and we knew ABC was very high on him. So we were writing more towards him, but with The Good Wife, it was just open field on all the characters.
Talk, if you can, about the difference between those two experiences in terms of does it narrow your possibilities, therefore, when you have an actor in mind, therefore making it easier or more difficult?
With having an actor in mind, you find you have a voice. You have
right.
That you can imitate, and usually that is a help towards finding character because we tend to start with voice. Having the whole world open to you sometimes seems like you could be more creative, but sometimes the more options you have, actually, the more it makes you freeze up in the creative process. So I think it's a little harder, but usually we will start there. So usually the voice, you find you're grabbing from someone you interviewed in the process. Sometimes we do research. You're grabbing this voice, combining it with, if that person's not funny enough, you can combine it with something over here. You start marrying people's voices. So either way, you try to limit your own options. Because if you have the whole world open to you, you don't create a very interesting character.
Right. You find that what your experience has been in terms of having someone...
And just practically, it doesn't work to write to someone you want because you don't get them.
What if you had them? Say in the case, me. You have a very specific...
Do you work local in New York?
Life would be very Pesci, specific to a type. So forget about the aspect of you fear you might not get them.
It would be heaven.
Okay.
I mean, it would creatively, it would be heaven to have someone and build from there.
Right.
Well, and also, can we say one other thing is we have a series of judges on the show that are usually comic, sometimes dramatic, and we bring those people back to try to create a world where the show creates its own world. So we had David Paymer back, or Dennis O'Hara back playing judges. And so then you write towards that person's comedy, but not the actor's comedy, the character that was created for them. You can write towards that voice, and which is very helpful, because then you create plots based on that voice.
And what is the longest number of seasons you ran a show?
The one. This was the longest we've had. We're just...
Can't keep a job.
No, it's hard.
So then let's talk a little bit about the struggle that has led to the #1 new drama. Let's talk about specifically this project, The Good Wife. That statistic is true, yeah? It was the #1 new drama for all the networks.
Well, it has probably the most viewers.
What else matters?
That's true.
Sold the most ads? We're all about original views, aren't we? All right. You're still there? Okay. I was talking. All I heard was somebody wrapping gifts. Isn't that what it sounds like?
It does.
Constantly wrapping gifts. The party's at 4. So let's talk about this particular journey, because we have the end result. We know how stinking fabulously successful the show is. Let's talk a little bit about the frustrations along the way and the hurdles that one must not give up the good fight to get through.
The bottom line is we came out of the strike in pretty bad shape because I was on the Writers Guild and was involved with the strike on the front lines, and it was just a very hard thing, and we felt like we were writing per what studio networks wanted.
Oy.
We felt like we were, we found out that there was someone who wanted to do a show about witches, so we felt like we were trying to fit that pattern. And we came out of the strike knowing that we didn't have a home anymore, in a sense. We didn't have ABC saying there's a blind deal this year, that we'd have to have a lot more options. So we committed that year to try to sell 2 pilots so that we would increase our options, which meant...
Now that committed to each other.
Committed to each other, yeah. No, there was no one.
No, but it's
and
quite
to
a
end,
commitment in terms of your workload every day in, day out.
Yeah, and we have a 10-year-old, so it was going to be hard. To do that, we had to start with one we thought that would be more the meat and potatoes idea, which is actually The Good Wife, in that it fulfilled what we felt networks needed to get their audience. In the case of this, having a procedural and having a job where someone would have cases of some kind. But we knew that for it to be interesting and to have any potential to be sold, it had to be different from what was out there. So we had this other element, which to us was this, within a month or 2 months, there were these 3 scandals that had 3 wives who were embarrassed by being forced to stand next to their political husbands. There was Elliot Spitzer's, with Silda Spitzer's, and Larry Craig. He was the one in the bathroom who had his wife standing next to him.
Sure.
And then Haggard, who was a televangelist, and had his... And it felt like it was this phenomenon, which we couldn't think of. Usually when you think of political shows, you're usually following the asshole politician husband. And we just thought it was fascinating that what about this, thought of as an appendage, someone that is trailing her husband along on this ride and has no control of her fate. And that was the starting point for just saying, okay, well, that's a great opening image.
Yeah.
This wife who's in the corner of the frame, you're concentrating on the husband like CNN would, but you see this wife over here, and then what happens when they go back in the green room after he gives a speech where he just admits that he slept with these prostitutes? And what is that next minute about? What's the next minute about? And we knew that we love we love law movies. We're not as big a fan of law shows. We love legal movies and how courtrooms are used, how words are used for drama. And so we leaned, because of the background of some of these wives. I mean,
yeah, I was going to say, we started looking at some of these real women, and over you found, okay, these are, first of all, women that are choosing to stay in the marriage, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Many of them are highly intelligent and accomplished on their own. And we kept seeing lawyers, one after the other. And it's like, okay, wait a minute. There is a weird pattern here. What is the psychology beneath it? And suddenly you can't stop thinking about it.
So you did start the process, though, by knowing the landscape.
Yes.
By knowing not only what all the networks want, but what a specific network.
Yeah, I mean, we consider ourselves craftspeople. We really want to apply art, but the only way anybody pays you to do that is if you're aware of their problems, which is they have an audience that wants to tune in for a certain thing. So I wouldn't say, we're somewhere between whores and artists. We're probably in that middle polite section.
That's called show business.
Yeah. But I think it's idiotic not to know kind of what the market wants.
You have to be a whore and an artist. Somebody write that down. In order to be in show business, you must be a whore and an artist.
But I would say that what the hunger that came from a strike gave us was the acknowledging that we needed to fulfill this side of what we didn't feel network TV was doing enough, which is supplying character, strong character-based drama.
By playing their game, You were able to introduce a concept that, quite frankly, to my understanding and knowledge, which is ridiculously limited, had never been done before.
Yeah.
This particular story of the instant sympathetic victim who has her own strength and personality and charm and talent that is never truly understood because she stands in the shadow. So you created something that didn't exist on television as a weekly series that I'm aware of, but you started by trying to fit into the framework of what the buyers were interested in.
Yes.
So that as a format, quite frankly, it becomes to me less about be a horror and an artist as much as understand what the desire is. You know, there's creating supply and demand. If you're fortunate to stumble upon the pet rock, you can make people demand something that they didn't think they needed. But then there's fitting into the creative world of knowing exactly what the buyers want, not exactly, but in a framework. And then once you embrace that alleged horror side, you're able to truly be creative and inventive, in this case, inventing something that didn't exist.
And you also better be lucky because every other television writer in town knows exactly the same things you do.
Right.
And so they're all trying to fill those exact same
Well, the more
slots.
successful ones know.
Yeah.
Know the same thing because they're doing the same research and homework, and that's another great thing to know,
Yeah,
which is to understand your competition.
Can I go back to what you were saying?
Absolutely.
Which is that actually what it does is if you feed their need, you actually free it up more. You can take even more chances because they have their want for what they need to put on the air. And if you satisfy that, it's surprising how many chances you can take in the other way. I mean, to me, one of the biggest chances of the show is usually when women are shown as main characters on TV, they're kind of super women in a way. That it shows showing women that are on the top of their game who are too tough for, you know, they're women cops who are tough because they had a military dad or something. What the show was interesting is it really was a woman at her weakest moment and was trying to rebuild her identity. She didn't quite know who she was. So it allows you to take more chances if you give them some of what they want.
Right. Okay. I want to open this up a little bit to the folks who apparently finished wrapping their gifts. There was supposed to be someone maybe roaming around with a microphone. Ah, there it is in the center. They have to come to the mic. Well, that'll be easy. What? Not at all. I would have voted for 3 mics, 3 people running them around, but I wasn't asked. So if anyone, here he is now, our first seizing an opportunity. That's what you must remember, people. Seize an opportunity. The rest of you sat on your hands. I don't know what to do.
What's your next project?
Terrible question. What the hell is the matter with you? Sit down.
So,
Idiot.
how do you follow up a success like this? What is the next style or genre format you're going to go
Sorry,
after?
we were talking. You've got one amazing season under your belt. You're gearing up for season 2 now. Let's see, it's July, so stories have been broken. You've got your staff in place, and you've already started writing scripts.
Yes.
You have any time to think about what the hell to do next?
What to do next is driving back to the office.
Yes.
I mean, that's as far as I've been able to plan.
We start shooting the second season Thursday, so what's that, 2 days away?
Yeah.
And I mean, you have to write a script every 8 days. I mean, it's just every 8 working days. It's just not a system that allows for thinking about the next one. Although, and I don't think we can contractually think about the next one until after this year. Or is it this year or 2 years
There's
away?
a contract that controls your thoughts?
Yes. Yes. We can't even...
Holy shit, yo.
Oh, yeah.
That is fantastic.
I know. You can't believe what they have.
Wow.
I know.
Yeah. There's another reason why I'm on the internet.
You have someone else.
No contracts that control. Hello.
Hello, how are you? Quick question for you.
I make a living.
So I hear. I have a question with regards to your association with Scott Free. You mentioned that you've got an executive producer person who helps you from that side, but is non-writing. Can you explain how that person helps you guys in the creative process, what the relationship is there? Are they just an advisor and they fight the battles for you on the network side, or are they also involved in the creative as well?
Well, first of all, really great question, because it is, I think it's developed between every non-writing executive producer and every writing executive producer. I think it changes with each relationship. What we found in David Zucker was someone that was pretty tenacious. He and Andy Patman found out that originally they had passed on our pitch. And it was kind of, we had been driving to Yosemite with our daughter, and we heard they passed, but it's not over yet. And it's kind of like, wait a minute, they passed, but it's not over yet? That's not how that works. But then he went back and said, you're not passing. I know there must be some miscommunication. And he actually turned up what was a pass into a yes, which was really, we still don't quite know how he did that, because usually passes are no. And the other thing he does is he really holds our feet to the fire about creating arcs throughout the season. Because if we could, we'd just make things up as we go. And he's like, no, let's think out. What are we going to do? What is the story we're telling for the first 6? What is the story we're telling for the first 13? And I would say he's better than that than with these twists and turns that are each episode. So I would say there's a creative component, even though he doesn't write. And there's very much a fighting our cause component with the studio and the network. Like there was a casting issue today. He's fighting our issue to get someone that we want that the network doesn't want. So, it doesn't stop for him. The Ridley and Tony Scott of it, where they're really helpful, is we were able on the pilot to get a lot of talent that we wouldn't. Because, for example, Archie Punjabi, the actress who plays Kalinda, the character was always written as East Indian, all those things, but there weren't that many options in casting, and we saw Archie Punjabi in something that Ridley Scott had shot, A Good Year, and then he made the call and got her interested, and also we got a DP that we wanted because he wanted to impress Ridley. I mean, there's that element of the non-writing executive producers really helping you. We have no complaints on any of that. I know a lot of writers complain on that. We find them essential to the process.
And I'm sorry, again, to follow up, they were involved after the pitch. When did they come in?
No, they were David was the first person we pitched to, and then.
So before you went to the network?
Yes, we honed the pitch with them. Then we went into the studio, got the studio on board, perhaps did a little further honing, and then went to the network.
Okay.
In the writer's room, do you beat out everything ahead of time and then give it to the writer, or do you let the writers go and then you go and?
We have a staff of 6 writers, and together we spend from 10 a.m. in the morning till 6 at night talking through every beat. But, isn't that right? 10 to 6. And it's everybody beating it out together, no matter whose script it is. It's everybody trying to figure out what beats are. We do not address ourselves as much to the personal story. We think some elements of the personal story kind of float to the top as you're writing. Now, when it's a freelance writer, I don't know how much freelance writers as the Guild requires every show, I think twice a year, to give a script to a non-staff member. We have done it both ways, where the writer is in with us trying to create a story together, and then sometimes we beat out the story and then handed it to the freelancer saying, okay, this is now the story, now go outline it. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Hurry up, damn it. No, thank you very much. Please state your name and your...
I'm Mark. Yeah. As you say, Alicia's a really complex character and seems maybe more human than maybe there's some other legal dramas where the characters are more caricatures. Since she doesn't fit inside that Wonder Woman box, what do you suggest for pitching a complex character like that?
I've pitched features before, and features, there's no tolerance for hearing that much about characters. You're supposed to give the 3 lines on what the character. It's hard to. No, I'm going to turn my back on you. I'm just. Where are you going?
It's his way of saying, tell everyone.
Usually you're doing the 3 to 4 lines and features of what the character is. We found, if you agree, in TV, that they have great tolerance from hearing about characters. I don't know if the landscape has changed in the year and a half since we pitched this, but they will sit and listen to character for a while. And you know who's very fun at describing character is F. Scott Fitzgerald, because usually character is described in telling little stories instead of saying he stands this tall, he does this. So that seems to be the best way to pitch character, is saying this is the type of person who blah, 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 and then you tell a story about that. But we found that the hunger in TV for complex characters is very strong, and in pitches. They want to hear, how is this character not like what I've seen before?
And they want the show to last 5, 6, and beyond years, and the only way that's going to happen is with characters that you want to follow week in, week out, as opposed to a high concept.
I think the biggest surprise to me in television was finding out in the pitch that yes, they want to know what the pilot story is, but that's not the bulk of it. Because if they've been at it a while, they realize, yeah, okay, but what does episode 85 look like?
Pitch me the first season.
Yeah.
I mean, in many ways, with our pitches, we've had the pitch story ready in some rudimentary form, and then at the end of the regular pitch, you said, now, do you want to hear about the pilot story, or is that? And usually, and a lot of times, they don't want to hear it, because that's not really what it's about. They really want to know, what is the concept of the show, how do the characters play into the concept, and why would I want to watch this person for 100 episodes?
Yes. How much is the network or the advertisers involved with the delay in consummating relationships for the sake of the public? So, for example, the relationship between Will and Alicia, or the relationship between Lisbon and Patrick Jane, for example. Anything where you're watching people like that on the screen and you expect them to have a consummated relationship, but at some point the studio or the network doesn't want that to happen so soon for fear of losing the audience.
Well, in terms of the advertisers, we have no contact with them in terms of character development. And in terms of studio and network, they do want to have creative input, and there are those discussions, but I don't think I think their impulse is creative rather than commercial. In other words, they're not saying, keep these characters apart because we feel that somehow we're going to sell more soap that way. I mean, they might have a point of view, but that isn't the impulse.
Yeah, I was surprised with you sat down somewhere.
Right over here.
Oh, okay. No, you don't need to stand. I just needed to. I think we were surprised how little obsessed the network was with the spacing out of peaks in a relationship. We asked the advice of Christina Davis? Oh, no, who? Oh, yes. Christina Davis, when we were shooting the pilot, what have you thought was the biggest problem of first-year shows?
And that's a CBS executive.
Oh, I'm sorry, a CBS executive who was on the set. We said, we really want to learn what is the biggest mistake of first-year shows. Why do they end? Why do they never get the first year? And she said, usually the problem is delaying events. That a lot of people, showrunners, creators, think, oh, won't this be great? 18 episodes down the line, I'll have this happen. And they don't. And then they think, okay, I can get there by doing this in episode 2. And then the audience just goes away after the 3rd episode, and you never get to that episode 18. So in many ways, plotting out the year is helpful, but you really do need to think, how do I keep things cooking for the first 3 or 4 episodes? I mean, look at Lost the first year. I mean, it was one great happening after another. And then compare it with like 6 Degrees, which was a show that just felt like it was parceling out pieces of information. So you're always just waiting, okay, come on, get to it, get to it. Yeah, I mean, throughout we've been reacting to what the actors have been doing. We didn't think this would be a big Will-Alicia dynamic, or Will-Alicia-Peter dynamic. And then the actors were really good playing that. So we started writing towards that. And then we thought, okay, well, but we got to cool that down because that's really not the heart of the show. The heart of the show is what happens to Alicia. So anyway, we just kind of playing with the dynamic as we go, and we're getting no pressure from the Studio Network to do it one way or the other.
Step right up. Don't be frightened.
Thank you all for coming. For newbies like myself, the pitch is very important, and it's also, you get nervous in the pitch. What were the top 3 things during your pitches to the network for The Good Wife that you think pushed them over to a yes?
Well, as we said, it actually landed as a no, so we might not be the people to ask.
Well, I mean, took the no to a yes, I guess.
As we said, we script our pitches so that we don't blow. We always have that to fall back on. We ad-lib as we go, but we always know that we've remembered the core, actually every word of the pitch. And I would say the biggest thing was the start, which was saying, where we want to open with this image. And then describing that image, and even taking a little while to describe that image so you get the listener, in this case, draw them into what the pitch is doing. I would say that opening image was probably the grabber because people got it. And then I think the other thing is her path to a job that made sense for a network, which was only original in that the husband, who was the scandalized husband, went to jail and they had lost their home because of the court costs, so she had to start working again to even make money. Suddenly they got that. And the other thing is, I think there were probably some characters they thought, look, you could create all the great characters in the world, you can create some circus clown in your show, but if the network doesn't see, or the studio doesn't see how it fits into the requirements of the narrative, they don't, it doesn't have any traction. So Kalinda, the character Kalinda, mattered to the pitch because they could see, oh, that's how information's parceled out for the procedural, and yet you're getting character as you go. So I would say those are the 3 things: the opening image, how she got her job, and the third thing is how the characters connect it to the requirements of the narrative. That was a good answer.
It really was.
Looks like I prepared it.
It really was. I think it was scripted also.
Hi, my name's Alan.
Hi, Alan.
I have a question. Just given how viewers are consuming television, via new media and online and Hulu or whatever, or DVR and everything, when you guys write or develop scripts or whatever, is that something that you take into consideration, viewership behavior, consumption?
How will they watch your show? Does that fall into your creative time at all?
No. What has become interesting is the feedback of the audience is much more in your life because of, we're not like the Lost people where they really pay attention, so obviously, because there isn't that much of it, but there is this sense, people, you want to see whether people are getting bored of this thread or this thread. You can kind of access it online. The other thing is, our sense of narrative is to never have slow moments. if you watch the show, they move pretty quick. You're through a teaser, and the teasers are very long. They're 12 minutes long, and 4 plots are laid out. I think that helps online because online you have so much ability to click around. But I don't think CBS necessarily is the most cutting edge regarding that. I think they'll get there, but I don't think they are now. So we're not pushed to go there. It's just our own taste is to have things happen fast.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, step right up. You had a follow-up, did you, sir? You might be our first and last question.
All right. So do you have a pitch Bible or do you have a Bible in a pitch? And
again, sit down.
What? And what is in it? What's a must-have in it?
What's what?
Do you have a Bible? Do you make a Bible every time you pitch?
The Bible is right. I know we heard about that. We just didn't. But I not with a pitch because isn't it about what the? No, we don't. Okay. Sorry. I wonder if that's an older term because
the Bible, other than the obvious choice, is mostly used in television to describe what the season is about,
or the series,
or the series as a overview. Yeah, so I guess you wouldn't. Well,
no, sometimes we have something printed up to give the director just so they know. But But then after the first season, that kind of went away. So
you don't know the end of the story at the beginning of the series?
We don't know the end of the season at the beginning of the season?
No, the end of your story. The end of what you're telling.
The entire series.
Yeah.
Well, we did, but we didn't tell anybody. I mean, we knew, Michelle and I knew where we wanted to write towards, but we weren't forced to write it down for anyone or...
Nor have you.
No.
Nor will you tell us now.
Because you don't really know when the end is going to be. You don't know if you're going to get 13 episodes or 23 or a second season. So, I mean, you have to be a little more flexible than that.
So what we knew the first year is we knew that they had committed to 13 episodes after we were picked up. We didn't know whether they'd give 22 or whatever. So we had the knowledge that at the end of 13, Peter, the husband who was in prison, would come home. And the last image would be him saying hi at the door. And that's the episode that comes at actually the 13th. And then from there, once they picked us up, we knew, okay, well, what is the second chapter of our story? If that's the first chapter, the first 13, what is now the back 10 episodes? And we had to create an arc, and we knew that we want the end of the season to have the same image as the first season, which is his reaching out his hand for her to grab it on stage. It's all, the whole show is about hands reaching for, blah, blah, blah. So we knew we wanted a bookend of what the start of the year would be and the end of the year.
Yes, please.
I'm curious, when you said the number of episodes, I know that typically in broadcast there are like 27 and then cable might have 13, but I'm thinking, didn't your show start a little bit later in the season? But creatively, it seems like a show like Mad Men, they only have 13 episodes and they have more time, to make the quality versus the commitment of more than 20 episodes. Do you have any thoughts on that? Or I guess I'm kind of multi-layer question. Your current season, are you having more than 13 episodes because now you were renewed? And what are your commitment, for this season?
Yeah, our second season we were renewed for 22 episodes.
22, okay.
And oftentimes in the middle somewhere the network says we'd like one more yet. So we'll be doing either 22 or 23 this year. And yes, cable is more luxurious.
Yeah, I mean, if you were asking what our thoughts are about that, they're pretty bitter. To not write a script every 8 days would be a real luxury. To spend months thinking out what your year would be, and then taking that time off to go to Europe or something would be very nice, because then you don't have to start up again. That would all be really nice. It's funny that Emmys addresses them all as if they had all the same amount of time to.
There's no bitterness at all there.
Yeah.
You're wrong.
No, do you have another question?
That's weird. You bank twice as many shows potentially, and that, I guess, is the upside to all the bitterness.
Yes. Yeah.
If that's possible from a creative standpoint. All right, so I will follow up with the last few questions since the audience has grown weary of standing. Or maybe saving themselves for a standing ovation. Let's hope that's what it is.
Oh, nice.
So, getting off the subject of The Good Wife for a second, talk a little bit about that thing that I hinted on a little bit in the beginning, which is I asked the process of working together, but I don't think what was addressed was as husband and wife. Because I have noticed while we've been up here that there is a more dominant speaker between the two of you, which
I'll shut up now.
shockingly
I'm sorry.
was the alpha male. But so in terms of creating and in terms of writing, but also in terms of the perception, which unfortunately is often 90% of the game, the perception of who you are and what strengths you have, they can be challenged, in my own personal experiences I've noticed, by the network if you are working with a mate in a creative way. The networks, I mean, in this case you came with your own pedigrees.
Huh?
Writing resumes.
Oh, yes. So what?
So it wasn't as easy for the network to drive a stake between you.
Right.
There's never been an urge towards that at all. I mean, we came in to them together, and there was never any sense of, oh, we'd prefer there were only one of you. That has never been them.
They're used to working with writing teams. So the good news is they always treated you like a writing team.
Yeah.
Yeah. And partly because I think the only time I've written separately, or any of us written separately, is features. In TV, we've only ever written and show run together. I wonder, I mean, that has a lot to do with it.
Yeah, I don't think they're actually sorry to see a woman in the room in television, because the feeling is that they'd like to get female viewers, and there are an awful lot of female TV executives. So oftentimes Robert's, in fact, the only guy in the room when we're pitching.
And maybe you should talk a little less. I think is what you're trying to say through this moment. It's an odd way to pass that along to your husband, but I think he's grateful for it.
I think I'm the more opinionated on the process, wouldn't you say?
Yes, I would say that.
How so? How does that reveal
I think
itself?
because I've worked with the Writers Guild for a while, so I know what writers go through, and so I kind of think about, okay, the more pragmatic aspects of what we do. Because, you know, we don't really have a fallback career. I mean, after the strike, we were looking at it and we go, well, we could go teach, except we'd never taught before. I mean, we didn't quite know what we'd do at all. So you have to kind of be very pragmatic and think, what are the steps that get you there? And I've seen the writers that have failed and succeeded through the Writers Guild.
Well, one of the things that we should maybe comment on, through my own experiences of getting involved in original content online, it was a matter of, if you're not creating, you're waiting, which has sort of been a mantra for me now for years. And the writers' strike, I would think, was one of the reasons a boom was created of original content online. Did you have that sense of exploring the internet during the writers' strike?
We did not, but because we were involved with the friggin' thing we were in negotiation with management, so we had no time to do anything other than try to get a contract.
Right.
But, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I was going to say that's not what...
I guess because you were working with the Writers Guild is what you're saying.
Yeah.
You actually were working every day.
Yeah, we were working every day. I think what was good, could you go back to your mantra? What was it in creating?
If you're not creating, you're waiting.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that's the essence of what we do. We're not the most talented writers in the world, but we don't sit down and wait. Because, you know, in TV anyway, less so in features now, they really do react to original content. You don't need a comic book. You don't need someone's novel. They can react to something that is original and serves their needs. So we don't sit, we actually try to have a long list of things we want to do, because, you know, it's funny when agents and managers talk to you, they say, well, what is your one passion project? And it's kind of like, no, that's not how we work. We have the 12 passion projects, and if we don't get this one, we'll go do that one. That doesn't mean that one goes away. It just means we'll do that in 5 years from now when, you know, when they don't want to do this one anymore. That seems to be the essence of what a writer, especially a writer on TV, needs to do these days.
Creating something original and knowing what they want.
Yeah.
That seems to be the more powerful phrase. Yes, I'm going to say it. More powerful phrase than if you're not creating, you're waiting. If you were looking for something to pass along to everyone who somehow missed this moment in time. Yes, sir.
So with that, Kevin, I want to thank you very much for your help with this. I want to thank you guys.
We're not
very
leaving.
much. And let's show our appreciation to Kevin.